With that, it's 5:33 and I call this meeting to order. Let's go to roll call. I see Bjorn, Brandon, Deanna, Greg, Jess, Josh, Lacey, Joey, Sean, Eunice, and Zoe. I do not see Messina, Terry, or Peggy. Can I entertain a motion to approve today's agenda?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved by Brandon, seconded by Bjorn. Thank you, gentlemen. And the motion passes. Can I entertain a motion to approve last meeting's minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Bjorn. Any second? Seconded by Deanna. All right, thank you. And the motion passes. On to reports. I don't believe I have a report for you guys this week, so I'll yield my time over to Brandon.
Yeah, thank you, Christian. My report is very short. For student government side, we're just kind of really wrapping it all up, to be honest. We got, I think, 3 more weeks of lecture, and then a lot of us will be kind of matriculating out, graduating. However, this week, and then for our not next week, but the week after S&A, we'll have Joffrey Odock here, and Joffrey is the vice president-elect. So he'll be shadowing me. And if we see any of you in any other meetings, Joffrey will probably be shadowing me there because I'll be starting his onboarding process next week. So it's very exciting. And yeah, it's cool for Joffrey to see kind of like this process because it's kind of like it's a nice, I guess, ease into S&A. And then he didn't get it. And then, you'll be more prepared for fall and winter when it starts speeding up. So just so you know, Joffrey's here. He's with me shadowing. And if you have any questions for him, or if you have any, I guess, suggestions on, what the vice president should know or be prepared on, I'll do my best, but I'm definitely open to suggestions because I think onboarding processes are a team effort, not just a solo thing. So please feel free to reach out to Joffrey or I. We're just kind of we're a single unit now. So yeah, with that, I yield my time over to Joey and Lacey.
Great. I also have a really short report. I just wanted to remind everybody that our supplemental budget has a current balance of $215,000 for the year. So I know we are voting on our supplemental, and unlike other years, it's been a while since we had one. So available balance is $215,000.
And then on my end, as a reminder, we are not meeting next week. It's going to be the week after. So if you sign in next week, you're on your own. But that'll be our last business meeting of the year. And so we will have the voting on the carry forward requests that we're going to hear tonight. And then we do have 2 new requests that timing wise, they could only get there for that last meeting. And so we will be hearing the presentations for those carry forward and voting on them on that last meeting. And so we'll get that notice out ahead of time so you all can see them. But just as a heads up, that last meeting, the agenda is already set with where we're at on that end. And so we'll send those out as soon as we can. But that'll be our last one for the year. And then the other part, again, I appreciate the discussion last week on feedback and recommendations for the committee. And for those of you who have sent along your individual recommendations as well. Definitely, if you haven't had a chance to, please, again, you have throughout the whole rest of the year. There's no rush on it, but if you can send that form to me, because again, I'm going to be compiling all of that. One for our end of the year wrap-up report that I send up, but also in preparation for training and things in the fall for the new committee. So with that, I yield my time.
All right, thank you, Joey. And if I'm not mistaken, there's no communications received.
That is correct.
All right, let's move on to public comment. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
There is the question in there. Oh, never mind. Lacey just typed the answer to it. I was going to ask if she could answer it.
Okay, cool. Anything else? All right, seeing none, let's move on to old business. And that is the supplemental request for student legal services through ASCWU for $20,000. Any opening remarks on this item? Bjorn, I see your hand up.
Yeah, it seems well in line with the mission of the committee and a very worthwhile effort besides, especially from an equity lens, having that. I mean, I suspect the lawyers may be overtaxed, but as a pilot program, it's a great way to basically give access to legal services, or legal advice at least, for students who might not otherwise be able to afford it. So I'm all for it.
Any other thoughts? All right, seeing no other comments, can I entertain a motion? Bjorn, I see your hand up.
Motion to approve this supplemental request at full for this year. I think I have to set a time limit on supplemental requests, but
I think with this one, Bjorn, the request was for next year, so it was already built in the time frame of it. So they'd be
all right,
piloted.
cool.
Yeah.
And I move to fund this in full.
All right, and in the comments, I see Jess seconds this motion. Any discussion before we vote?
I'll just say that I'll be abstaining because it's ASU that presented it. And then so as the representative of ASU, I'll abstain from this vote.
All right, any other comments?
I mean, I just want to check in with the Brandon. Should I abstain too or no? As a student senate, I don't know.
I would answer that and say, Eunice, no. I think Brandon's really just because it's being presented by ASCW Executive Board within that. But because it's not something that you or your organization are presenting or you would directly benefit from, I think Brandon's the only one who would have a conflict to abstain from. Great question, though.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, seeing no other comments, I call a vote. And the motion passes to approve this funding request. Okay, on to new business. There's another carry forward request from Wildcat Films for $7,000, and that is with Kate Dalton. Whenever you're ready.
Hi, everyone. I do have a presentation prepared for you, but as tech would have it, PowerPoint is failing me right now. So I can definitely forward it on once this is done, but it's pretty straightforward. Thank you for the introduction. Again, my name is Kate Dalton, and I'm the Student Media Business Manager for Wildcat Films. And our request tonight is to carry forward $7,000 of our anticipated FY21 fund balance, carry that forward into FY22. The purpose of the carry forward would be to purchase computer equipment that Wildcat Films has been approved for on all levels, starting with the provost on into computer support. So everyone has reviewed our request and it's been approved. The reason that we are asking to purchase it later rather than in FY21 is Apple is due to release a new updated computer with an M1 processor instead of the Intel processor. And that update is set to be released sometime in July or August is when it's anticipated. So in a matter of months, if we were to purchase right now in the FY21 year, in a matter of months, that would be obsolete. So we are just asking that we have a little bit more time to purchase the most up-to-date computer equipment. And the computer would serve the purpose for Wildcat Films to act as like a live streaming switcher that many of the projects that Wildcat Films has been approached about, in particular theater, for example, to live stream their theater productions. This would allow Wildcat Films to seamlessly do that and have the equipment and updated technology to do so. So right now, Wildcat Films is anticipated, it would be about a $10,000 fund balance if we did not purchase that in FY21. So we're just asking that $7,000 of that anticipated fund balance be carried forward to FY22. And that's all I have. Are there any questions?
I see Eunice's hand up.
I'm just have a quick question that, I mean, what's the difference buying with Intel laptop or M1 laptop? What's gonna be difference buying the Intel, because it's also brand new, it just released last year. I'm just curious what's gonna be difference, or how is gonna affect your Wildcat films?
So it would just ensure the most up-to-date technology. Computer support services actually recommended that we wait if we can. There isn't an anticipated cost difference. In fact, they're thinking that it will be even less expensive than what the Wildcat shop proposed us with. So again, it would just be the most up-to-date technology. And you know, we're again requesting this based on the recommendation from computer support that we wait if possible.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Brandon, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I kind of have like two questions. One of my questions is just given S&A's recommendation for the next quadrennium, are we going to have a Wildcat Films in operation next year or even for the next 4 years?
Well, Wildcat Films, as you know, is offered as a class. So that is part of the film students' requirement for graduation. Wildcat Films, you know, S&A always provided funding for the student employment for the students that were going above and beyond and holding officer positions. So yes, Wildcat Films will carry on in its as much of a capacity that it can without funding.
Okay, and so then that would be my next question. Knowing that I guess Wildcat Films will be living inside the classroom, how will this equipment be used outside of kind of the classroom? And because we can't use.
Well, they'll still take on clients from the CWU community. Sorry, from the CWU community. You know, like I mentioned, theater, it would help with their coverage of the fashion show, Polyfest, because they still have, they're still acting as an on-campus video production house, promoting different events and whatnot and happenings throughout the CW community. Does that answer your question?
A little bit. So they're getting this new equipment so that they'll only use it if a community community member tries to partner up with them. Otherwise, this equipment won't be used inside the classroom.
Well, it kind of all like mingles together a little bit. And so, like, I get what you're asking, and I understand the concern. But, you know, Wildcat Films, yes, it exists in the classroom, but it also serves a bigger purpose for the CW community. So, I mean, they would be using it in the classroom to, I mean, they, you know, they would have to be trained on it and know how to do these things rather than just being thrown into it right when a client asks for it. So.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Are there any more questions? Joey, I see your hand up. Then we'll go to Bjorn.
I was going to say, I think there's a question in the chat, and I apologize if it was asked, but it looks like Jess asked why MacBook instead of iMac.
So it can be transported to these events where the live streaming would take place.
Go ahead, Bjorn.
Just ask a follow-up, so.
Let's see, sorry. Yeah, it's for, so yes, it is for one piece of equipment, a laptop, and it's at the max specs, just due to the file size and the Wildcat, I mean, they're producing films, right? So these are enormously large files that take a lot of processing power. Computer support had, you know, questions about the specs that we requested, and they approved them at the max specs just due to the file, the nature and the file size that Wildcat Films deals with.
All right,
Can I ask what? Sorry.
Yeah, let's go Bjorn and then we'll go Eunice.
Yeah, so the original allocation in fiscal year 18 would have had a goods and services budget, which I assume this would fall under. And like, I just want to see how large that goods and services budget is from. This rollover request is basically just from the goods and services that were unspent, right?
Yes, that's correct. I can pull that up right. So Wildcat Films allocation is approximately 20,000. And our goods and services is around 5,000, and that last year our spending requests did not get approved, so we have you know, kind of an overage of goods and services budget to be spent just due to the spending freeze last year.
All right. Just to clarify, so this is 7,000, which is more than the budget for 1 year, but like goods and services went unspent for more than a year, or less than fully spent? Okay, that makes sense.
Less than fully spent, yes, yeah.
All right, so it's like part from 1 year, part from other year?
Right,
Gotcha.
correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, there was, yeah.
All right, Greg, I do see your hand up, but Eunice, did you have a question as well?
I mean, my question is just basically, is Wildcat Films has an office or something like where his laptop is gonna be held, like, or is gonna be given away to people who's gonna use it to their home? Like, the Wildcat Films, do you guys have an office for that students or not?
So Wildcat Films is housed in Lind Hall, and students have all been working remotely. I mean, as most of you probably are as well. And I think, I haven't heard an official word, but I think Lind Hall is now deemed usable, but up until like, I think just a week or so ago, it was not usable and not accessible to students in any capacity. So I don't know if that answers your question, but depending on what the university has, kind of qualified it at Lind Hall as, the students would be back in Lind Hall working if they are able to do so.
All right, and Greg, I see your hand up.
Hi, just I guess to understand that there's a $7,000 balance right now in the account, and you've already gone through the process of approval to purchase a laptop today.
Correct.
But you now know that a newer version is coming out later or after this fiscal year ends. So if the committee does not approve this, you'll go ahead and buy the laptop that's available today, right? And if
Yes,
you do, then you'll be able to get a better machine.
that is
Right?
correct.
So that our decision is just on whether or not we will approve you to get a better machine, right? Is that correct, Lacey?
Yeah, yes, that's exactly correct. Yep.
All
Yeah,
right.
we are prepared to move forward purchasing an FY21 if needed. But it's worth an ask, right? So,
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. Go ahead, Bjorn.
Actually, let's do Jess's question first. Mine was less important.
All right, I'll read it out. Let's see here. Can you elaborate on the live stream intent with this? What program you're working with and your anticipated partners / clients for the projects that you would need this request for?
Yes, so as I mentioned, theater is one where the productions would be live streamed. It could be utilized with the spring fashion show, Polyfest, and other reoccurring live events. So those are ones that I would say theater in particular is one that there's been a in-depth conversation with about these live streamings, but it would just open up much bigger capabilities for Wildcat Films and serving the CWU community.
And with that, I believe we're out of time for questions. If we have any more, we'll be in contact through email. And Joey, we're not voting next week, we're voting the week after, is that right?
That's correct. Since we're not meeting next week, it'll be at the following meeting that we'll vote on it, Kate.
All right.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, everyone. And I will forward you the presentation for what it's worth. So, all right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming out. All right. I think that's all we had for new business. I see Brandon's hand up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with the grace of the committee, I would just like to add maybe one more thing to new business. Based off the discussion we had last week, it was brought up by Terry, but I felt like it had a lot of support from different, I guess, parties on the committee about possibly removing faculty members and or staff members from this committee moving forward. And I wanted to just kind of like open up this to discussion and see how students kind of felt. I could definitely start, but I just don't know parliamentary wise, do we need to kind of like vote to add this to new business, Joey?
I mean, if we're going to add it as new business, I'd say yes to put it on there. It's also, we're coming up on public comment piece, but I think we can just have it as discussion because I think it makes sense within here.
Okay, then I guess I'll just start the discussion now. I just wanted to say, like, I really appreciated kind of the faculty members speaking out on how they said this is really should be a student-led and student-ran completely committee on how we should choose how the student fee money is spent, and that they've always seen themselves kind of as being those advisory roles in many different senses. However, it does take up a lot of their time. And I know it's like part of it's just to be respectful to them, but also just part of it's to, make sure that this feels more comfortable for students in many different ways. And so I know if we had this purely just, maybe 2 advisors and then just students on this committee, I always thought that could be a good dynamic. And now that that discussion was brought up, and now that I've heard kind of like support from faculty members, I also wanted to hear kind of more from the student members at this committee, how they felt about that, and possibly moving forward, into Joffrey's term and kind of the terms after that, if we just had S&A as purely just a student committee. And I just wanted to say, like, voicing my support, I support, rewriting the policy or starting that process with Joey and Lacey to change the policy for us, so that this is only students that are on this, and we could either stay with the 9 students or actually replace the faculty members with more students, so we can have more student representation and more. And so that's something I wanted to hear from everyone, kind of like, are they, first of all, like in support of that as well? And then second, how do they feel about, maybe decreasing the number of members, or actually just like switching out, faculty and staff for just more student members? And so I just definitely wanted to open up the discussion.
Eunice, I see your hand up.
So I mean, it's gonna be a good idea to increasing maybe student members, but I also believe that we should keep the faculties and staffs, because their opinion also gonna be valuable for the students as well. Like when I see the Greg and Terry and Dr. Shan and Dr. Josh, I mean, their opinion on the student issues is also important for me, for others. I mean, I think it's not gonna be a good idea to replace faculty staff, but it's gonna be a good idea to increase in the student members as well. I mean, yeah, I think we should keep the faculty staff because their opinions are valuable as well.
Eunice, were you gonna say something else? I still see your hand up. Okay,
Sorry.
no, you're good. It happens. I see Joffrey's hand up. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I am so happy and pumped up to be here. And, I have been thinking about that idea of also, changing the membership a little bit. And, I think about a 75% student and then 25% faculty would serve better, because in my opinion, this committee should be more about students than increasing the number of faculty in this committee. Just because S&A is more about students, I think, and the resources and then the services that come out of it should be more about students rather than more about faculty. Thank you.
And thank you, sir. And I see Brandon's hand up.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, I appreciate Jess's comment in the chat, and then Joffrey's and Eunice's output as well. I do want to agree, and then I also just want to maybe like put any other perspective out there if it helps, just knowing that, if it was purely students, we could have a full student probably voice and recommendation that goes to PBAC, which already has faculty and staff representation. That does go to president and the board of trustees. And I know already it would almost see like, our faculty and staff are almost advisory roles on PBAC. And then to also just have faculty staff that see themselves as already being more advisory role on this committee. I just wanted to kind of like hear from you all if that made sense, having faculty and staff here as voting members, or should we kind of try to maybe change the policy if we want their perspectives and their input, maybe change them from no longer being voting members, or we could go and think about maybe removing student staff because we already have them at basically the next level of our recommendation process that can basically send their recommendations our ways or advise us in a sense. So I also just wanted to put that out there as well. if that makes sense, and just saying like there's different options to go about it. And with that, I yield my time to anyone else.
All right. We'll go Joey and then Bjorn, but I do see a comment in the chat from Jess. I personally would not want to remove them from the committee, seconded by Eunice.
I think Brandon actually touched a little bit on what I was going to say. Is I just wanted to point out, as you all are discussing, I think there's two different pieces to be discussed. It's the whether or not to have them as voting members versus having them present. And the one part from a procedural standpoint for you all to consider is to be mindful that voting members are what counts towards quorum. Within, not only for us to be able to do any business, we have to have a majority of the voting members. And so like right now, we have 13 voting positions, which includes our faculty and staff. So we have to have 7 voting members present. Non-voting members don't count into that, as well as when we talk about when there are votes on things that come forward needing to have a majority that pass those. And so I know that's kind of where, and Brandon kind of touched on what I was going to say for you all to consider in the discussion, is what you think, given the feedback from faculty last week. And I know Sean had to leave and I know Terry's not here this week, but to take into consideration and discuss within that is there's varying levels of what you all could recommend or move forward.
All right, Bjorn, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I do definitely think that student voice should be, you know, important here because it's student money going to students. I do also want to say that it was really helpful as a first timer on S&A to have longer sitting members. I don't know how long Greg has been around here, but having that, given that students turn over relatively quickly, it's really useful to have that ongoing backbone that doesn't graduate. And I will note they ask really good questions, which was super important during the information collecting stage. It's kind of, it becomes a balance of, can we ensure that that kind of support for the student members. I also wanted to touch on how the S&A committee factors into professors' workloads. I know the professors, at least last I heard, have a unitary workload, and committee work, like what would a normal committee, like a 1-hour meeting, count for versus S&A in terms of units? Because I just want to make sure that's fair. If faculty continue to be involved, I want to make sure they're getting their fair workload, you know, not being shortchanged.
Looks like Eunice put a comment in the chat. I would like to table the discussion for this topic for next week, for the next meeting, because we won't be meeting next week, and invite student leaders and some faculty senate to have a discussion about it. End quote. So Eunice, is that a motion or is that just a comment? Like a general idea? Just a comment for now. Thank you. And I see Joey's hand up.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, just so people are aware, because I realize we haven't gone over this, on how the process works if there were to be changes, so you all know where that goes, is if the committee were to recommend changes to our procedure, our policy, you all would work on that. We'd have a vote, which would be, again, a majority vote that would move that forward. Those procedural changes are then taken before Provost Council, which has ADCO and Faculty Senate and all of the academic deans who sit there, who would look over, provide their feedback, and then if approved, it goes to the University Policy Advisory Committee, which is the president and cabinet, and then we have representatives from, again, CWU has a vote there, and so does Faculty Senate and a number of other areas. And so if we were to move something forward, there's a number of steps still involved where there's people and abilities for constituents and stakeholders to provide feedback and context. Really for the committee would be, this is our recommendation given the work that we do and the feedback from the committee that we would put forward. But there's still a number of steps, even if we were vote on something, any changes that were recommended would be pushed back to us, if those would be the case, that would come up, but they still have to go through a number of procedures to be vetted.
All right, thank you, Joey. Are there any other comments, any questions about this particular item? Go ahead, Bjorn.
Yeah, I just wanted to check where this change would be made. I've skimmed the RCWs that are relevant, and I'm assuming it's not at that level because I don't really feel like going to Olympia. It would be a change in the CWU specific procedure. Okay, that makes sense. Gotcha.
Anything else? Question in the chat. Is increasing the number of students potentially a better solution? From like 9 to 11. Ask Jess.
Here's like clarifying question. Jess, are you thinking about like reducing faculty staff to, I don't know, 1 faculty, 1 staff and replacing with students, or do you just want to add on? You want to add on just 2 more students? I'll go with the yes, because she said no to the first question. Okay. Just expanding it to bigger student voice. I think it could be, and keep it, yeah. I think what I'm hearing, I think just a general consensus is that we do sincerely appreciate the perspective we get from faculty and our staff member on the committee. However, I think the question is like, since I guess hearing from like Terry saying like, they don't feel like even comfortable even voting when it comes to us deciding on how we want to spend our student money, maybe the discussion could be pivoted to, do we think that our faculty and staff members should really be voting members? And then we can kind of incorporate what Jess is saying, where we just kind of expand student representation. So we do increase our voting members to like 11. So maybe like quorum could be 6. And so I think maybe that's kind of like discussion we could go down. And then obviously I know Eunice was talking about faculty senate and stuff, but they do get involved after we make our suggestion or recommendation to policy change. So I don't know if we necessarily need to bring them into this conversation because they're going to be involved in it no matter what in the provost table. So I think for me, I guess I just kind of want to hear yours all thoughts. We should keep faculty senate on this committee, but more have them as non-voting members, and that they also assist kind of our advisors here on kind of like helping us keep like, I don't know, being knowledgeable of past, if they've been here for, I guess their term is 3 years, and then our advisors have been here much longer, of being to, use that perspective, in the past, this is what these committees did, and this is where they found success, and this is where they found hardships, to help, like we said, just kind of like not even guide, but just put a suggestion out there for the committee and just kind of be supporting roles, very similar to our advisors. So I guess the question I'm thinking of maybe just changing this discussion, and maybe somebody can vote on today, because I think it makes it a lot less complicated, is if we kind of, what do you all think about making the faculty senate just non-voting members and possibly extending or expanding our student spots on this committee?
I do see a comment in the chat from Joey. FYI, currently faculty appointments are for 4 years, whereas student appointments are for 1 year. Just to clarify that. And I see Bjorn's hand up.
Obviously, we have half of our faculty staff base here, but I just want to make sure that you guys, if you are considered ex officio non-voting members, that you'd like be properly compensated for doing it, because it's it's sitting on S&A can be quite a time commitment, and I want to make sure that it's not like being sent here to listen. It's, you know, it's worthwhile, I guess, but it's fair.
I see your hand up, Greg. Go ahead.
I guess I can try to respond to Bjorn's concerns. So faculty workload is a funny thing, and it's maybe, on 9-month contracts, you have 45 workload units. It's divided up between teaching and scholarship and service, creative work, that sort of thing, right? So committee work falls under service. How many workload units one gets? There are actually a handful of committees and things that are defined in the CBA for faculty that actually specify a certain workload unit amount for different services. For S&A, it's not. So it's kind of up to each faculty member to indicate workload units if they're on S&A in their workload plan that gets submitted to their chair, that then gets submitted to the dean for final approval. So it's, I'm gonna assume that faculty on this committee might not ask for any because they're just here out of the goodness of their heart. Some might ask for, one or two, I don't know, and then it's just up to it being approved, right? Now that you're asking me, I don't know what I think I do have something on my workload plan. I mean, I have to go back and look it up and see. For me as chair of a program, workload units are kind of funny because it's just all work and I just do my job and I get paid a lot of money. So I don't really think about workload when I'm sitting here every Wednesday evening. It's just, I enjoy it. Being here. I think I have some insight sometimes to offer based on experience and understanding of budgets and how some other things run. And, that's what I try to offer or ask questions maybe once in a while, but, I hope that helps you answer what you want.
It does help. Thank you. As a follow-up, I mean, it's hard to ask this with only one faculty member here, but like, I can't help but feel that you guys, deserve, even if you're doing it out of the goodness of your hearts, that you somehow deserve, proper standardization. Because I feel like S&A would probably qualify for more than one unit. I mean, of course, I don't want to, my opinion has little bearing there. I just wanted to raise the issue to make it, fair to faculty and staff.
I think it is. I think that, the faculty senate puts out a call for committees and faculty throw their name in the hat for different committees if they want to be on that committee. So I think that most faculty that are on this committee know what they're getting into when they start. And I should know this as chair of a program, and I'm actually trying to look at workload forms of all my faculty right now. One unit is equal to actually so many hours, and so I don't have that off the top of my head right now. So I think that mostly faculty that are on here are, in some way probably adding this to their workload plans, to what they feel comfortable with. So I don't think anybody that's here feels like they're being taken advantage of or something else.
I do see a comment in the chat from Jess. To rephrase above and answering Brandon's suggestion, I would be in favor of increasing student representation, but not supportive of removing voting rights from faculty/staff. Also, would like to hear more regarding Bjorn's concerns with time commitments. Kind of already went over that part, so it looks like there's a new message. That chat was from a while ago. That's okay, Jess. It'd be like that sometimes. Any other comments on this discussion point? All right. Bjorn, go ahead.
One thing that while we're talking about potentially increasing the number of students, I don't think this year, at least, we hit the diversity requirements in the CWU policy for S&A, because it's currently saying, so far as practicable, there should be student representation from each of the 4 academic colleges, non-traditional student representation, student representation who reside on campus, and representation to the university centers. That doesn't specify whether it's all of them or just one of them. And I'm pretty sure we have someone from each of the 4 colleges, because Brandon's business, Messina and I are
Yeah, I think we have everyone except a university center student this year.
Okay, that makes sense. Welcome, Joffrey, who is at a university center.
Well, I mean, actually, well, if Jess is online, then we do.
Yeah, that's true. Well, non-traditional and center are differentiated here, but having more student members allows us to hit that, to diversify the opinion more, I think is a good point.
And
even
I think
more than it's already.
Yep, you know, in my 3 years here, I mean, I've seen a couple of years where there has only been 2 faculty because there wasn't anybody that wanted to serve. So it's not like those 3 slots have always been filled. And I think also I've seen many times when there isn't enough students willing to serve either. So I don't know, you know, how often, I don't know that end of it. I just know that sitting on this side and seeing students around the table, that sometimes all 9 seats were filled and sometimes they weren't. So it might be the same situation on the student side as I see on the faculty side. There's just, you know, you got to be that special person to want to serve on this committee.
When I think I was the last person to join, senators were being assigned to committees, and when Maddie asked if people wanted to go to S&A, there was kind of this deafening silence, and I was like, I don't know what S&A is.
All right, Joey, I see your hand up.
Well, and I was going to touch on that. I think that's the part is for a couple reasons. And so this is also for consideration as you all are thinking about the membership piece too, is Brandon can touch on this. It's something, Joffrey, for you to be aware of going into next year is there have been most years where we have not had a full student membership because we do not have enough people who have either applied or who meet. Because there are, again, you have to be in good academic standing. You have to have certain pieces on there that get vetted by the dean of students. And so those pieces are always the goal, but I can only think of 1 year where I think we had a massive influx to where there was a plethora of candidates to choose from. Normally, again, people are pretty specific on knowing what S&A is and coming in, which is great, but oftentimes those are not going to meet all those areas, right? And so I know it's ASCW tries to get the word out there and get as many people to apply, but they can only pull from the candidates they get who apply to be in it. And so one, to think about that, because we do try and hit those pieces, which is why it's worded the way it is, Bjorn, when you read that up. The idea is to get a broad representation, so not everyone is coming from the supply chain management major, and the whole committee is made up of that program, right? Is to have that and to get those out there, but it can be difficult. And so that would be the part I'd say, as we think about expanding student membership, I think is great to have student voice, but also want to be mindful of what that ends up meaning for ASCWU, because because if we add it, those are now the quorum. If we add, what would that be, 2 extra student positions, I think is what it was looking at. The quorum would now be that we would have to have 2 more people to be present, regardless of whether we have those positions filled. And so that's been the challenge in the past, is when we've had student vacancies, we've had, and Greg, I think, can't remember if this was your first year or your second year, there's a period of time where we only had 1 faculty member. And so we had two faculty vacancies because faculty senate hadn't appointed or filled those because they didn't have people. And we had a handful of student vacancies, which really meant everyone kind of had to be present for every meeting for us to be able to do any business within those. And so just things to think about as we look at it, because the work we do is very governed, because it's not just we're making motions and things that apply to money and allocations and budgets, which all has to go up through the chain, meaning we have to follow all of those rules of order to make sure we're hitting the quorums. If not, we can't vote or can't hear things until we move forward. So.
Lacey, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so kind of in the note of things to think about during this process and the structure is, if the concept is to increase the student bodies on this committee, one of the hardships we've also run into is the schedule. And obviously, I think faculty have had that. We've seen that, especially with kind of the change in modality of our classes. So just think about that, I would say, because, it is every week when school's in session outside of like finals week and some of those things. And so maybe that's something that the committee can think about should we meet every single week? Is that too much of a time commitment? Can we think about it as a quarter basis, or is that not enough time? So all up to you, but I just wanted to go ahead and throw another seed to plant for you guys to think about during this process.
Thank you, Lacey. Any other comments? Any other questions? I'll check the chat here. Brandon, were you about to say something?
A little bit. I was thinking about, I was just gonna make some motions just to kind of get that consensus of where we all feel on this, and then maybe we can tackle the other seed that was planted. And so for me, I guess hearing from most of the people on this, I guess around the committee, I think I'm just gonna make a motion, and then we'll just see how the vote goes, and then we can probably change it and kind of figure out where we are on options wise. But I think right now, I'm gonna make a motion to, move to turn our faculty and staff positions into non-voting positions, and then increase our student members from 9 to 11. And then I guess, yeah, with that going in, just to make the policy change, basically starting now, so it can be in effect next S&A committee. So I'll put that motion out there.
Is there a second to that motion? Check the chat. All right, seeing none, the motion has failed.
I want to make a motion.
And what would that be, Eunice?
I want to table the discussion for next week to talk about it and not to decide right away. So, my motion is to invite some student leaders and maybe some faculty members on the Senate to ask their opinion. Then we can make a motion that Brandon just given it for now for next week. I want to table the discussion next week.
Seconded.
Second. And just to be clear, we are not meeting next week. It would be the week afterwards. So
okay, next meeting, sorry.
For next meeting, okay. Any discussion before voting?
Yeah, I guess I would just make discussion. I mean, do we necessarily want to have that conversation if we know as of right now that, we want our faculty and staff to have voting rights, and that sounded weird, to be voting members. And then also it seems like, I guess the real question is, because it seems like that's where we are. I think the real discussion for next week, or if we just want to just do it now so we don't have to table anything just to save time, is do we just want to increase student representation on this committee? Or since we're leaving kind of faculty and staff as is, do we just want to leave it at 9 just because we know, the hardships of, possibly finding 2 more students?
Can I change my motion? Is it possible?
Well, I think we would have to vote on this motion, and then we can make a new motion.
Okay, sorry, I did the wrong motion.
Okay. And then I guess just hearing from Eunice, and then that means I'll just vote no on this motion, just so we can kind of clarify what direction we're going.
All right, but before that, I do see Bjorn's hands up.
I think it's valuable to take that that time to, I mean, not necessarily discuss with other people. I think it's valuable that other people know this is going on, but we definitely have a strong opinion as is now. But like, I think it's worthwhile. It's a big enough decision that I want to take some time to think about it and digest on it and debrief with my rubber ducky. It's a programming tactic that makes you evaluate decisions. But also to involve Messina, Terry, and Sean in the discussions because they're not available right now.
All right, any other discussion? Greg, I see your hand up.
I just, for Bjorn, I just looked up on the, my screen over here on the CBA, and for service for faculty, according to the CBA, 30 hours equals 1 workload unit.
Hmm.
If it actually works out that way, but that's how it's defined anyways.
All right, thank you, Greg. I think I saw a question in the chat, and that has been addressed. All right, any other discussion before we vote? All right, seeing none. Just to be clear, the motion is to table it till next week, or next meeting, excuse me. And the motion passes to hold off until next meeting.
I vote nay for my own motion.
Hey, I mean, somebody's been voting nay on the adjourn motion, so.
Like the reason I wanna say nay, because I mean, like Brandon say, I am like favor of the expanding students only. So, I mean, we could just focus on this meeting, not next meeting, because we already started talking. So now it makes sense. That's why I wanted to remove, but thanks to people say yes for the motion. I even say nay, but thank you.
Brandon, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I think it's just, yeah, like Eunice saying, I think, so we know where we feel with like kind of like our structure wise with our faculty and staff members. I think for just like maybe Peggy, when she like sees the minutes, is just on next week's agenda is just to discuss whether we want to expand student representation on S&A or not. And then, yeah, with that, we can move on to the next part of the agenda.
All right. The next part is a second call for public comments. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
To public comments, but my connection is not good because I am in the road. So I will type it in the discussion. Can someone read it?
Yeah, sounds good, Eunice. In the meantime, any other thoughts?
I post the first one and the second one is coming soon.
All right. I'll read the first part of it then. Oh my. Okay. CWU MSA in solidarity with Palestine. Statement by the, oh, my screen just got crazy a little bit. Hold on, let me just make sure. No, that's even worse. What happens? Where did it go? Where did it go? Okay. Statement by the CWU Muslim Student Association on recent developments on Jerusalem. The CWU MSA is deeply concerned about the serious escalation of tensions in East Jerusalem over the past few days. CWMSA unequivocally condemns the violent attacks against civilians at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, excuse my pronunciation, compound, an ancient site of spirituality and worship that holds deep significance for the people all around the world. CWU MSA respects the fundamental human rights of Palestinians and all people, and all affirms its respect for the protection and preservation of human life and heritage sites. CWU MSA reiterates its support for the Palestinian people and recognizes their right to establish an independent state based on the 1967 borders agreed upon by the United Nations. And I believe there's a second part to this. Last night, we said goodbye to the last night of the holy month of Ramadan. And today we celebrate the ending of a fast. Eid Mubarak, and happy to all Muslims around the world. May we celebrate next year, Inshallah, with hugs, kisses, and good health. End quote.
I am sorry giving you the hard time, but seriously, I am in the road and my connection is bad. So sorry. I will buy you Starbucks coffee, Christian.
That's not necessary. It's okay. All right. Any other comments? Brandon, I see your hand up.
Yeah, CWU ESC is going to be hosting International Cafe tomorrow at noon. We have all the links on our social medias, especially on the ESC Instagram. But I just wanted to give you all a heads up. That's going to be kind of ESC driven and should be a fun time.
Thank you, Brandon. And Joey, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just as a reminder, since again, we're not meeting next week, we'll meet the week after. That next Thursday is the ACW virtual end of year celebration that's taking place from 6 to 8, in which again, the S&A fee committee will be getting honored with the committee of the year from ACW. So just as a reminder, get the chance to join in, that'd be great. Otherwise, I'll see you all in 2 weeks.
All right, thank you, Joey. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Look at that. Okay, seeing none, can I entertain a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
So moved.
All right,
Second.
and seconded by Brandon. And the motion passes. All right, have a good night, everyone. See you next meeting.
Bye all.